My name is Ryan Schneider, and today you may notice that something is a bit different. That is, my co-host, my good friend Jacob Russell, is not with me today. Jacob is expecting his third child, and is taking the week off of recording, so I'm manning the helm today. I am doing today's episode, which is extremely exciting because I have a very special guest. For episode 11, I'm very excited to have Ian Moss on the show with me today. Ian Moss, as you may know, is the designer behind Duelosaur Island. Duelosaur Island being part of the Kickstarter from Pandasaurus Games earlier this year that released the reprint of Dinosaur Island and its expansion, Totally Liquid. So he and we chat about everything under the board gaming landscape. We talk about him meeting up with Jonathan Gilmour, how he got into the scene, some early development with News at 11, and we actually have some great details, some interesting information about Wonderland's War, which is the next Druid City game that is developed by him, Jonathan Gilmour, and the Eisner brothers. Also, before we get started, I just wanted to thank all of you guys, whether you're a new listener, whether you are a returning listener back to our podcast. You know, we've been putting out podcasts that last about an hour and a half, and for you guys to be able to take a portion of your time to listen to some or even all of the podcast means a lot to both Jacob and I. And so again, if you're new or if you haven't yet discovered the rest of our different types of social media channels, you can find us, of course, on Twitter. You can find Jacob and myself at our Rolling Doubles Twitter, which is at Roll Doubles. You can also find me on Twitter at RyGuy314. You can find, of course, this podcast on iTunes and on Google Play. Where we will also be getting on Spotify too here, so be on the lookout for that if you are a Spotify user. And on YouTube. On youtube.com/rolling doubles, you'll be able to find all of our podcasts where I will actually split out the segments so you can pick and choose what kind of segment you want to listen to. Again, youtube.com/rolling doubles. For our guest, Ian Moss, if you want to follow him on Twitter as well, you can go to @ChaosMoss to find Ian on Twitter to see what he's been up to. You can also follow Infectious Play Publishing on Facebook. Every day, normally around the morning times, they do a live stream of their show, and I strongly recommend you guys check it out. Speaking of Facebook, you can also find Rolling Doubles Podcast on Facebook as well. We try to go ahead and publish articles and little posts as far as things to look out for with Rolling Doubles. Both Jacob and I will post pictures as well as far as what we've been playing. Same with Twitter as well, so you can find us at Rolling Doubles on Facebook. So that's a lot of social media, but again, wide audiences, and we want to be able to capture the attention and hopefully bring a lot of positivity and a lot of new things to your plate for you guys to check out and try. So thank you again all very much for your time and support. This week, we enter and explore the town of Gloomhaven, set collect our way in conquering the continent of Ethnos, discuss the evolution of card games with Keyforge, and roll some dice and take some settlers and dice settlers. This and much more on the Rolling Doubles Podcast. Welcome to Rolling Doubles, a podcast about two board game enthusiasts who have never met and rolled the dice on friendship. My name is Ryan Schneider, and today is an interesting but a good episode that we have in front of us today. My co-host, Jacob Russell, is not with us. He has taken the week off as he is expecting his third child, like this week. If it's today, that's going to be awesome. But in any case, he's taken the day off, as I said, and I have with me a very special guest, Ian Moss. Hello and welcome.
Hi, how's it going?
Going extremely well. I had the opportunity at work today to be outside of the office. I was able to attend a seminar, which was a nice break. So I'm here. I have all my games listed, and yeah, how about for you?
Good. I was inside an office all day, but since my full-time job is making games, it's not as bad as a normal job.
Yeah, I have to say that I'm a tad bit jealous that being able to make games and stuff like that is a whole lot of fun versus my day job. So, but yeah, as part of the show, we'd like to go ahead and talk about what we've been playing this week. So, Ian, I want to kick it off with you. Can you tell us about a game that you have been playing this week that you've enjoyed?
A game that I have enjoyed a lot, that we've been playing a lot because we were lucky enough to be able to get a couple of decks before the release of the game, is Keyforge, Call of the Archons.
Nice.
So yeah, so we've been I've been seeing the game a lot. I've been hearing a bunch of people talk about it ever since Gen Con, when they had like that preview event and everyone had decks. We were just like, man, I really need to get my hands on this.
Right.
And we found a couple people who had decks. So the John Gilmore and I, we share an office. We do game design stuff together a lot, and he's my Keyforge friend. Basically, we were on this mission together to go and hunt and find Keyforge decks.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to play the game with people who had decks. So we were using their decks that they had gotten from the Gen Con event and give it a try, and we loved it. We were immediately big fans of it. And then at another event, they were giving them away, and so we actually end up getting copies of, I think we have 3 decks total. I think maybe 4 between the few of our friends and I.
Sure.
So yeah, so we've actually got copies of decks that we've been playing, and we're just showing it off to whoever, of course, sort of paying it forward to anyone, since people were happy to let us play their copies. We're having other people play our decks that we got, teaching people along the way. But yeah, and
nice.
it's a lot of fun. Like, it is. I really like that I don't have to deck build. I think that's one of my favorite aspects of it.
Yeah.
So how much do you know about Keyforge? How much?
Yeah, so Keyforge again was announced at Gen Con 2018 this year during the in-flight report, which is kind of like the biggest keynote. Like video games have like these huge like press conferences, right? Everybody, like, it's become a grand event. And I think now that the in-flight report, I think, is one of the, I think, probably closest to in the board game community, like those press conferences, right?
Right.
And even this year too, with the release of or the announcement of Arkham Horror 3rd Edition, and Keyforge being kind of their preliminary, or the kind of their mainstay, like, this is what we have to show off. Yeah, again, this was designed by Richard Garfield, who is of Magic the Gathering fame, and published again by Fantasy Flight. These guys, again, are building, for those that don't know, have created what's called a unique deck builder, which every single deck of cards that you buy from your local game store, from Fantasy Flight, whatever, is going to be completely unique from anyone else in the entire world. Again, theoretically, who knows? I guarantee you, Ian, there's going to be someone out there that is going to have something very close. Like, there's going to be different names with the same cards. Hopefully not, right?
Right.
The math should be doing it. But again, no deck building. You pay $10, you get what you get. That's it. You don't have to do anything else. I mean, if you want to fudge the system, sure, but that's not the whole point, or that's not the point at all.
Right.
So
they've actually put in ways where you can't fudge the system. Like, the back of every one of your cards is printed your deck name, your unique deck name on it, and also you have a card list with a QR code on it, so that says these cards are supposed to be in this deck.
That's right.
So it's like a double system where you cannot deck build even if you wanted to.
That's correct. I mean, for casual play, there's probably somebody that will go ahead and just mix and match just to theoretically see how broken things could get. But I think there's really a huge push with this unique building system to get all sorts of, I think, card players, whether you be competitive or brand new that just focuses on this one deck, almost an equal size opportunity to compete, which I think is a real neat idea.
Yeah. Yeah, and so we've been playing it a lot, and like the gameplay loop of it is really nice, because like there's 7 factions total. Each deck is a makeup of 6 cards from 3 different factions. And like you said, each deck is going to be different. Like, there is just sort of like a set of cards that they're using, I believe. So it kind of feels like there's like a magic block worth of cards. Yeah. It's like probably 350, 400 different unique cards, but the deck makeups are different. And so on your turn, the interesting thing to me is that you choose one of the three factions, and you can only play cards and activate cards of the faction that you choose that turn.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't, like, you can play creatures out and be like, oh, I want these big beefy creatures, right? I got these Brobnar creatures because they have these big massive creatures that just sit on the board and attack your opponent and like take their stuff. Um, but if you have, some Mars cards in your hand you want to play, you can't do that and also activate your Brobnar creatures in the same turn. So it's
Right.
like this nice, interesting choice every turn of like, do I push what I have or do I play more out?
So okay, so yeah, that's one of the big things too. Like there's like three or four different, or no, for each deck, it's like it's multicolor up to three, right? Or are there mono colors? I don't remember.
There's just three. Each deck
It's
is
just
three.
three. So just to clarify again, if you said this, I apologize. But when you activate a specific clan or a faction, does that mean that you can like play onto your your game at any type of monsters, and theoretically, if you had some available, be able to attack with them or use their abilities as long as it's all within that activation of that faction, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So you always just activate the one faction or play cards of the one faction. But a lot of the interesting things they get to do in this game is because they built this system where you can only activate things of one faction,
Mm-hmm.
is certain cards and abilities allow you to like break that rule.
Yeah. So like, could you say like this? So like maybe if we say do it in colors like red and yellow, like you play a red color out by using that faction red, and then for yellow maybe be like there's like a red, like if you decide to activate red, yellow triggers in a certain way. Is there kind of that cross contamination between cards?
Yeah, so like Brobnar, it's called Brobnar Red. They
Mm-hmm.
have like an artifact that you can play that you can just activate it, and when you activate it, it allows you to like ready an attack with any of your creatures. So that sort
Mm-hmm.
of it's any of them, not just one of the ones that you chose that faction for. So you get to break that rule with that. Or there's other ones that are
Nice.
like you can play two additional cards this turn, and they even have a keyword that specifically means you can use this no matter what faction you choose.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, because I think there had been some interpretation from people that I've heard that they said that, when you activate a certain faction that they felt very limited in terms of what they could do, but it seems like with how, small or if you're choosing between 1 and 3, when it's, at least as if you choose one, there's like a broad set of actual things that can be done, which definitely opens things up. So
Hmm.
I don't know. Like I said, I haven't seen it in the wild. I've just read and heard a lot about it, and I'm excited to give this a try. And it sounds like from you that this is definitely something that has legs. So I'm curious in terms of with this being maybe somewhat of the because they've done LCGs, and with Destiny that with that Fantasy Flight had come out with now Keyforge, like where do you see this going? Do you see Keyforge being an IP that can finally maybe push and get some market leverage against Magic, or theoretically any kind of I don't know CCG out there, or does this just kind of belong in its own little area that people are going to enjoy and like, but won't kind of have that still mass market appeal?
I think it's gonna hit a couple of different markets. Like I think it's gonna hit their LCG market, like because,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the people who like those are probably also going to gravitate towards this at least in a little bit because you know what you're getting, right? It is a little bit of
Right.
like a blind buy, but it's not like I need to buy all of this and then I also need a deck build, like
Mm-hmm.
or get all of these cards because these are the best cards in the game, right? Well, there's just a deck. You don't get those cards. You get what you get, and you have to use it. Which is sort of how like starter decks and most of those LCGs work, where it's like, oh well, this is my recommended setup for the very beginning of Arkham Horror LCG. Like I'm going to use this, and then after that game, you're like, oh crap, that didn't work at all.
Right.
um,
Exactly.
and I think they'll also hit the sort of Magic and CCG burnout market really hard. Like I think
Mm.
anyone
Yeah.
who's just used to play Magic, I think they're going to scoop up into this, because a lot of it is there's not really like a good play experience for people to get into Magic anymore. Like they're trying, but really like in any of the metas, any of the like tournament scene, anything like that, anywhere you want to play with other people, like people who are good at making Magic decks are going to beat you even if they play casually. Like you
Sure.
can't unlearn how to make a good Magic deck. Like even if you try and make a casual Magic deck, you're still gonna like, I'm gonna put 4 of this card in because that's good. I'm gonna put this big creature. I'm not gonna load it up with a bunch of 7 cost creatures. So they know just like the general how to build a Magic deck. Whereas someone new is gonna be like, oh, I really got this legendary. I want to put this legendary in here. This is gonna be the main thing in my deck. Is this legendary? So
Right.
I think you'll get a lot of those people who are just like, this is my
Right.
deck, and I can learn this deck, and I can love it, and I can treat it well, and it will take me far.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. I think that was one of the other complaints too. Was just that it kind of felt like if you like that's what it's weird now that I'm thinking about it. It's just like, let's say you spent like 10-20 bucks and you get 2 decks and they're bad, right? Quote unquote bad. How would you know? I mean, how would you know that? I guess theoretically,
Right.
I don't know, right? It's just like after you play 10 or 20 times, maybe you would know that it's good against these decks but bad against these decks, or maybe they're bad against a lot of them.
Right.
Or like, does that call into play you as a player or as the I think that's going to be a question and answer that will happen once we see the release of this. Is like, when someone gets a deck and this player plays it and loses 10 times, but then gives that same deck to someone, does the same amount of plays the same amount of games, like, we will definitely see, I think, the difference between a good player of Keyforge versus the card quality
Right.
and just random mix of cards. And I think that's if we get the latter half where we get players that play the same decks and do better or worse, I think that really says well to the design of Keyforge being like, you put the power of the cards in the right person's hand, and you can really mess some people up. So I think I think if it can execute that well, I think Keyforge would be a good success. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing Keyforge, Call of the Archons by Fantasy Flight Games. For me, I want to talk about a game that I was able to play last week, which is Ethnos. Ethnos is a game designed by Paolo Mori. The artist is John Howe, and the publisher is Simon. I think it has been published by some other people, but the most recent one that I think that we know around the States is by Simon. Ethnos has gotten some praise back in 2017 in its release, and that is a set collection area control game, which, by looking at the cover, the illustration of the cover is like super badass, right? It's just like got these warring factions, like it's super detailed, and just like everything's going to war. And then you bust out this game and it's like, ooh, I got 3 of these. Ooh, like, and then you just place them out in front of you, and then you put a little chip in a continent, and then you move on. Like, the game and the illustration does not do the game justice, right? Well, first off, before I even start getting into it, Ian, have you played Ethnos or heard of Ethnos before?
I've definitely heard of it. I haven't played it yet. My group, my local group got. I kind of say they probably got burnt out on it originally because
Sure.
like they bought into the hype, everyone had it, and then the next 3 or 4 events they were at, everyone was playing it, so they played it a bunch, and then by the time I was like, oh, I want to try this, like they were all done with it and moving on to the next thing.
Yeah, for sure. So for those that don't know, again, Ethnos is a set collection area control game in which the continent of Ethnos is basically kind of populated by, I think, 12 different monsters or creatures that all exist in a certain kind of like portion of the continent. And what you're trying to do is you have this deck of cards, and you pick at the beginning of the game like which monsters are going to be kind of populating this land. And as like clan leaders or something like that, you're trying to like forge alliances or gather from the same type of like province within your continent of Ethnos to like, again, do set collection. And from there, you can choose a leader. That leader has a special power that does something for scoring or for tokens or what have you. And you just go around the table and you go ahead and just, through a couple of different phases, depending on how many player count you have, you go ahead and just start building your hand. You start building the area control within the continent. And within like 20 to 30 minutes, like with a 3-player game, 4-player game if you have veterans on it, like this thing zips. Like this thing is fast. I've had no idea. Like from opening the shrink wrap to a game, I think took us an hour. Like having really a broad understanding of how the game works. And I think the ease of how the rule book was, how the rules worked, and everything shows, I think, how, I think, just clean of a game it is. And I enjoyed it a lot. I really want to play it with more player counts. I think it goes up to like 5 or 6. I think it's great. Aside from the fact that it has some of the, it has the greatest illustration to gameplay like dissonance ever. I think there's a lot to be had in Ethnos, truly.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've seen the cover and the cards and the components and stuff, and then like the graphic design on top of that. Like it was very. There's even like a break between those two things where you're just like,
True.
oh, these colors are really bright, but this is very fantasy novel cover art inside.
Right.
Um, and like when I originally first saw it, I just sort of wrote it off because I was like, I probably know what that is, and then I put it, and then everyone started talking about it, and I was like, okay, well, this is probably not what I thought it was if all of these people are talking about it. Because it has, like I said, it has that really badass art, like this huge battle
Mm-hmm.
going on. And I was like, oh, that's probably like in a 2 hour, 3 hour thing where you're just grinding
Right.
against your opponents to like take control of areas. But no, like you said, apparently it is a very fast game. And I really like those like deceptively fast experiences that you can like
Mm-hmm.
still get really deep decisions out of.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's for sure. The game cover looks, and especially when it's published from Simon and Spaghetti Western, like immediately I'm like, dude's on a map. Where this is like now discs on a map, right? One thing to speak about with Ethnos 2, talking about component quality, is the fact that this is like for $35. Not only do you get a great game, you get some great artwork, but the fact is that this has one of the coolest inserts, I think, for a game of this price point and size as well. And for me being a nerdy OCD like organizer dude, like I truly enjoy it when people put the time and effort to make a great quality insert to fit everything in. It just feels so great to clean up. I think it really does. It does add a tiny minuscule better experience for me, because I think from when the game comes off your shelf until you pack everything up, all that's just kind of an experience. And it's just like some games are like, oh, I love this game, but man, there's like so many components, everything is everywhere. And then it's just like, oh, I got to sort everything back the way it is. It's just like that adds some of that fatigue to being like, this is more work than just like getting it out. Okay, I might have to teach a new person, having them then play it, possibly not win, and then being like, oh crap, I got to put everything back. Does that make sense? Am I weird in thinking that way?
No, no, it totally makes sense. There's we just played Brass Birmingham. We actually played it on our
Mm-hmm.
stream recently, and the setup on that is intense. Like the setup, like there's so many. Like you have to set up a player board, and your player board has about, I want to say, 50 tokens on it that
It
you
does.
have
It's
to,
nuts.
and it's
Just
not just like
piles.
these go here, these go here. It's like these go here, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You have to match all of those up. There's multiple stacks of each, and I messed it up a couple times. So like before the stream, we actually had to like go back through and make sure like this has 2, 1, 1, 2, and I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I messed something up. Oh, that one goes here.
Yeah.
And
No. Yeah.
I don't think it detracted from the overall game because I hadn't played the game yet. But I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh man, this setup is pretty intense. And then to put it back in the box, you have to. I mean, that if you want to do it right, you could probably separate those things out and have those in smaller bags. Or you could just
Sure.
do what we did and just put it all back in one bag and be like, next time we play this, we'll deal with this setup again.
You just let feature you guys deal with
Yeah.
all that organization. Did you like it? You did like Birmingham, right?
Yeah, yeah, I actually really liked it. It was way more intense than I thought, and like, well, I assumed it was going to be intense, but like,
Yeah.
it was brain burnery, but like, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
feel like there was a lot of downtime because I was constantly looking at my next decisions. Like every time I
Absolutely.
took a turn, I was looking at what my next turn was going to look like. Where in other games, it's a lot of like things can change too much, so there's really no need to think ahead. You just sort of do what you
Mm-hmm.
do on your turn. Um, but in this one, things can change. But I already have like in my brain contingencies based on like the
Yeah.
cards I have in my hand, and then like what I'm trying to accomplish, and then how many more turns I think I have. And But yeah, it was nice. It was good. It was a bit of a longer stream for us because we had to consult the rule book. But thankfully, we had one of the
Yeah.
publishers there to steer us in the right direction.
Yeah, Roxley, right?
Yeah,
Nice. Have you played Lancashire?
I haven't. I've heard that one's a little
Um,
bit harder to get into.
I'm really curious because they played Lancashire first and then played Birmingham. I like Lancashire more, but I think the better game is Birmingham, which is weird. I don't know. Because the biggest difference between Birmingham and Lancashire, I think off the get-go, is the fact that there's a market, or how the market works. The market in Birmingham works with the barrels of beer, and the market in Lancashire is like this weird random deck. And like every single time you sell to the market and not through another player's like port, like what you have to do is you flip this card to see like how like when you sell too much to the market, like they get over flooded with your goods and they're like don't become as valuable anymore. So you like tick down this market kind of countdown timer to the point where it's just like, nope, you're stopped. Like the market doesn't want any of your stuff anymore. So the market gives more control in Birmingham to the players versus it kind of being this deck of cards. But for some reason, I don't know. Like I
Is
don't
it
know.
the surprise of it? The like the reveal of that of that market?
It is a little bit of like a push your luck kind of being like, ooh, I'm going to get a -1 or instead of like a -3 or 4, like however many it'll tick down. So there's definitely like, if that's the play, you're playing more towards, the, you're playing more towards the luck of the cards versus anything else. So yeah, but that was interesting how we went from Ethnos to Birmingham. Alas, but anyways, Ethnos, if you can find it, I don't know whether or not it's something that you can find. I don't know if it's out of print or not. I got lucky. I found one for like $35, but yeah, give Ethnos a shot if you haven't. Again, by CMON, published by CMON. Ian, what else have you been playing recently?
So another one that I got to try this last week. We didn't do a stream or anything. This is just sometimes we play games for fun. It's weird. It's a weird concept. But we got to play Dice Settlers. It is by David Turksey, who I have met. I got to meet him at Gen Con. He's super nice, super smart. He's done Anachrony and Tricerion. He helped with Kitchen Rush. Like he has his name on a bunch of boxes. So if you ever see his name, it's usually a good product. And but unfortunately that wasn't the main reason I wanted to try Dice Settlers. The main reason I wanted to try it because it has art by the Miko, whose real name I will not try and pronounce. I do plan on asking him one day the right way to pronounce it and have him teach me because I do want to know how to pronounce it correctly. That is just not something I'm currently capable of doing. But the Miko has probably one of my favorite board game artists. So anytime you put his art on the cover of a box, you have like increased your chances like 300% that I'm going to purchase it.
Oh, nice. Did he also do Raiders?
Yeah, he did the whole North Sea trilogy. He did Valeria, all of the Valeria games.
Nice.
Horizons recently, so more of a space one from Daily Magic. A ton of games, so many games. I've looked into his art more recently for research purposes, but I will skim over that.
Yeah, I was looking at Dice Settlers box, and immediately the face is like, "That's a Raiders face," because that's how I think I know. That's how I think I know his work is the fact that it's like a Raiders face.
Yeah, that was probably the first game I had ever gotten with his art on it, and like I saw it on Kickstarter, backed it immediately, and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be great! Worker placement. I love worker placement. This art is amazing. Vikings are cool. I mean, maybe not historically cool, but in the general sense, Vikings are cool."
Absolutely. I'm from Minnesota. I'm wearing a Vikings blanket right now. I have to. Anything Vikings related, I immediately like.
Right.
Alas, continue.
But yeah, so Dice Settlers is a 4X game. where you start out on 1 hex, and your job is to with your little township with your settlers, and your job is to explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate your way to a bigger settlement, basically, and gathering the most victory points. I believe there's a thematic name for them, but I don't remember what it was. In the game, they're like stars, so whatever the thematic version of that is. So yeah, and so how you do that is you use these dice. So you start with like a bag of dice, and you start with just some generic dice, and then a couple of specialized ones, and you roll a number of dice every round, and then those are the actions that you get to do. So like the more of a certain symbol that you roll, the more potent or number of times you can do that action, or the better that action is. You can only do each action once per round, I believe. Excuse me. Yeah, so I really liked the gameplay. The art, obviously, the art's amazing. And the game's a lot of fun. Like the overall flow, and it always feels like you can do whatever you want, because there's a symbol that you can spend before you activate your dice, which is, I think, the little pilgrim hat, that allows you to sort of change a die to any face that you want, or just re-roll a number of your dice. And you can also spend like your resources, like there's pumpkins and iron and wood, and gold, I believe, and you can spend those to either like set a die to any face or draw 2 more dice out of the bag and roll them. So it's sort of like you're never really cut off from the things that you want to do or that you need to do. But sometimes you roll the dice and you're like, yeah, I could probably get away with this. I could do this. I don't have to change anything. I'll just roll with what I have here. But yeah, so like, and then you're like increasing technologies and sort of like researching those by sort of going to these different tiles and then having the required resources to do those. And then also you are like trying to take over the tiles and like turn your little camps, your little tents into actual like settlements. And if you can do that, then you're going to gain the points that tile will give you at the end of the game. Whereas if not, then it's just whoever has the most tents will get a lesser amount of points for each tile. So yeah, there's a lot of really interesting things going on in the game. My complaints of the game have nothing to do with the gameplay itself. I think the gameplay and the art is fantastic. I think the deluxe version made a lot of mistakes production-wise.
Oh, really? So I'm looking at pictures. Are these 3D printed houses? It looks like it.
Yeah.
Like this is the purple, red, blue, black houses, and then there's like, the tents. Is that kind of what you're talking in terms of the component quality? Is that maybe the concern?
It's not really the quality. It is I guess it's the functionality versus like the regular edition.
Okay.
So yeah, as you said, the deluxe edition upgraded the little wooden cubes into for the tents into actual like 3D molded tents, and then like the settlements, which I believe were just wooden, also into 3D molded settlements. My problem was I was playing. I was using black as my player color, and their tents are like super wide. They are like twice as wide as any of the other players' tents, and the hexes are very small. Like they're not regular size hexes; they're small hexes. So like, and you'll have multiple of each player's tent in a space. Like I only played this 2 players, so it wasn't that as big of a deal. But I can see if there was like 3 or 4 tents in one space that you just wouldn't be able to see anything on the actual hex, which you need to. Like there's victory points, and then there's also an action, and sometimes the action deals with whoever controls it, or it's a factory, which is like an always on ability that you can use. So like them not being sized properly is annoying. And then you're supposed to like track how many dice you can roll using this little punch out track with like these punch holes in it. Well, that's supposed to use one of your tents to track that, because your tents are cubes. But since they replaced the cubes with the tents, with like the 3D molded tents, you actually have to like keep a cube just for that track, whereas normally you would get rid of all those components.
Yeah, I'm seeing. Yeah, okay, yeah. So they didn't necessarily keep that into consideration.
It's more of a, it's
Huh?
definitely a usability issue more than anything else. But like, I really like
Yeah.
the gameplay. Like, I think the easiest way is just to kind of revert back to the standard components because they're all still there. They don't not give you the cubes or the, the
Yeah.
punch out tokens for the resources. And the resources are really nice. They're like the iron and gold are metal. So
Yep.
they have that nice weight to them, and then the other two, I believe, are like a plastic sort of polymer style, and they're like painted.
They
Um,
look very scythy.
yeah,
Very, very collector's edition scythy when that first came out.
yep.
Yeah.
The only problem with those is that they give you less of them than you would get of the tokens. So, but it's not supposed to be player component limited for like what resources you can get.
Mm-hmm.
So we just kept the token resources in with the regular, with the deluxe ones, just so you'd always have
Sure.
enough no matter what. But yeah, they did some usability things with the deluxe edition that I don't think they really took into consideration. But it doesn't hurt the overall gameplay. It just hurts usability,
Mm-hmm.
you which could hurt gameplay eventually. And I wouldn't want
Yeah.
that to happen. I don't want people to like play the game, be like, oh, this I couldn't see what was going on half the time, and rate it like a 2 on BGG or something. Because the gameplay is
That's
actually
what.
fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, a very kind of a unique case in which kind of the standard edition almost seems to be the preferred edition over something deluxe. Is normally like anything, any Kickstarter these days, it's like, oops, skip past that first tier. I want that deluxe tier.
Right.
I want those metal coins. you know. Uh, Interesting. Is this game out yet?
Yeah, it just has started delivering to backers, so I
Okay.
believe it should probably be hitting stores soon. I don't know if it has a U.S. release, um, since its publisher is NSKN
Yep.
Games. I believe they
Mm-hmm.
are a European publisher.
I think it would be a banner. I mean, maybe it'll get a second printing if it does. Um, yeah, we'll see. I guess I'll definitely want to keep this on my radar. I think I saw some dude. You know what? I hate to say this, but I think some guy on Reddit played it at Shucks and like pooped on it. But like, what's new on Reddit these days? I guess I don't know.
Someone
Um,
on Reddit didn't like something,
right, like
decided to voice
that's
that opinion online.
in any case, yeah, like so Dysa, like I said, when he brought this up, I was like, ooh, interesting. Like, especially now that because obviously the developer is like like playing Tricerion, Anachrony, like those types of games. I mean, those are pretty some high class games. I
hmm
didn't even realize too, like Petrichor was one of them as well.
Yeah,
Did some kitchen stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna say that, but I didn't know how to pronounce it, so I left it off the list.
Redacted. You know what? I've always been interested in Redacted. I've never gotten into it. I
You
don't
know the
know.
weird part is, the Miko also did the art for Redacted, but there's so little art in that game that like I didn't even notice until I was looking up art stuff that like games he's done.
Yeah, there he is. I had no idea either. I've seen this game so many times at some game stores, and I'm like, I gotta get it. I just never do. I always pass up on it.
hmm
Um, yeah, he did Cerebia, right? Cerebria. Oh man, we should probably lay this one to rest. Oh my goodness. But awesome, yeah, Dice Settlers.
Yeah, I mean,
By
definitely check it out. Like I'm not one to like I'm not gonna go on Reddit and poop on a game. Like that's not. I always say like just talk about the games that you love. Don't talk about the games that you don't like, and then that'll eventually drown out people who are talking about the games that they hate. Um, but yeah, like the reason I mention that stuff is because I think publishers need to be aware that usability is a big part of their deluxe editions or how they deluxify games. Like
mm-hmm.
it still has to work. We're Subterra I had played, and I was very grumpy at the very beginning of that game because the person who had backed it like went all in, got all the extra stuff, and like got the minis with it.
Yeah.
But we were playing with like I think all 6 players. Like I think we were so many people wanted to try that game. They were very excited about it. So they're playing with that many players, and you can fit probably 2 of those minis on a tile,
Oh
and you
no.
needed to fit all 6 of them at the beginning.
Uh
So we had just had them like in a stack, like they were just stacked up and just like on top of each other and upside down, and however we could get it. They were trapeze artists in addition to spelunkers.
they were literally scaffolding down the hole into the cave.
Right.
At that point, they had all fallen down and they had just stacked upon each other. Just yeah. I like Subterra. I actually got rid of it though because in the game of like, you know, those kind of adventure games, I ended up keeping Summit. Have you heard of Summit before? Summit the board game?
I haven't got a chance to play it. I don't know anyone. I don't know. I mean, I probably know someone that has it. That would be a dumb thing to say that I don't know anyone who has it, but it's never shown up at one of our local game days. So,
Summit's I think Summit has a great presentation quality from beginning to end. It has a great adventure flow to it. It's like, it's weird because I think Subterra is kind of like that mix between dungeon crawling and Pandemic in terms of like you're flipping this card of bad things that's going to happen, and but you're still kind of like, you know, doing some tile revealing and moving forward. Summit for me though, I think just kind of like I had to choose, right? Like I was just calling my collection and I'm looking at them and I'm like, which one? I'm like Subterra was great, Summit's great. I'm gonna keep Summit though. I don't know. How about and you like Subterra aside from the fact that the minis were like didn't work?
I don't know that we played an entire game. I think we gave up on it. So I didn't get the full experience, but I think we were playing poorly. Just because none of us really knew what we were doing. So like a couple of us went down early, like we were down, and it shook out in such a way that like I was basically like, don't worry about me. Just continue exploring. You can come get me, but you're probably going to die in the process. So please just keep exploring. I will just sit here and do nothing.
That weird, awkward... Well, yeah, it is player elimination to a degree in that game. I think about it. I just remember we ended up winning, and it was this... like one of the abilities was like you could heal yourself or something like that. I think it was Peter. Peter Woken and I were playing with another friend of mine, and like I had gone down, and he was like... doing this weird awkward like movement between like three tiles in an effort to see how something shook out before like he ended up like coming back for me or something like that, and we ended up it was really bizarre, but it was kind of a fun moment to like share story wise, just to see like how things were like playing out with that game. But alas
I would try it again. Like if someone else had it, because I don't think the person kept it either. I think it didn't make it to their list, but it was probably a bad play experience, not a bad game for sure.
Awesome. All right. Well, that was Subterra, but the game originally was Dice Settlers by Nizkin, NSKN Games. The last game that I want to talk to you about, I don't think you've ever heard of. Nor do I think any of the board game community has heard of. It's called Gloomhaven. It's a sequel to Gloomhaven. No. No, I've started a campaign of Gloomhaven, developed by Isaac Childress, published by Cephalofair Games. The artwork on it is a couple different guys: Alvaro Nebo, Josh T. McDowell, and Alexander Elchev. I think I did it right. In any case, I'm in like my second campaign session, and I think I can say that I understand the hype. I truly think I can understand the hype behind this game. Aside from the fact that it is essentially, you know, a small kid or the size of my tiny little cute dog, there's a lot to be had in Gloomhaven, almost to the point where it's almost a little bit too overwhelming. I bought the Broken Token insert, which cost probably as much as the game when it kickstarted. And I mean, don't get me wrong, that thing is a lifesaver.
Sure.
In terms of organizing all the pieces and stuff. But like when we set up our first game and we were literally taking things out of this box, I'm just like, I kind of was like instilled with this minor anxiety of being like, there's so much here. There's no way I'm going to be able to explore all this. I'm like, what's happening? And it's like to set up the first scenario, we're like digging through all the tiles and like looking through the 3 different types of trays that we have to set up all the different sizes of different terrain that we have on the board. But once we started getting into it, again, that Euro-style card-based combat is something special to be had in this game. You all pick a character, you're playing through it, you level them up, you eventually retire them, you get new characters. Like, the amount of content in this game is just mind-bogglingly stupid. Just like, I cannot understand. Like, that man is a genius when it comes to this game. Through the story building, through the characters, through all the different types of interactions, through city cards, through road cards, to the act of playing these cards and kind of having this battle develop in front of you, and in the different types of attacks that occur or things that you do throughout the game. It's great. It's awesome. I just wanted to share that. Honestly, like, it's been probably weighed in last year a lot and stuff, but like I said, I'm looking forward to playing this however many times. It's probably going to get in a couple, probably every 2 weeks, given our schedules. But I want to share a story. I want to share a story with you. I went to Gen Con for the first time in 2016. It was my bachelor party, and I brought like a handful of my friends and my brother-in-law, who has never played board games before, to Gen Con. And I'll say that he actually did enjoy himself. He ended up playing Pokemon Go a lot, but he enjoyed himself, right? In any case, Gloomhaven was on, like, there was this battle 2 years ago between Massive Darkness and Gloomhaven. Gloomhaven had just finished up its Kickstarter, was potentially delivering to backers, and then Massive Darkness was about to hit Kickstarter. At the same time, this was when Scythe had just released. Like, Scythe was the super hotness at the time. So, like, day 2 or 3 comes in, we finally get settled in from the craziness of Gen Con, and we go and we're like, my friend Nick and I were like, Nick, I have this game called Gloomhaven I want to check out. I really want to give this game a shot. So we go, and again, knowing how Gen Con works with publishers now, like, I get it, but we went in the hall, and we went like kind of near the back, right to where the Scythe booth was, so like where Stonemaier Games was. And then right next to him was this tiny little 8-foot booth with Isaac in the booth and a little demo of Gloomhaven in the kind of, like, I don't know what it was. It was a very tiny thing, and we got a demo. And that was one of the most underwhelming demos I've ever received in my entire life. Like, we walked out of that demo and we were like, oh man, like, I don't understand what just happened. Like, he seemed, and I don't know if it was Isaac. I think it was Isaac that gave us the demo. It was a little bit hard. Like, the little demo thing had like these specially made, like, kind of like a rock wall or something like that. It was kind of like a custom made thing. It broke in the middle of our demo. Things like went going everywhere. And he was like trying to explain to us the whole concept of like the combat mechanisms, the combat things, and it's just like, he has such a designer brain but not a demoing brain.
Right.
So we're like looking at all these cards, and we're like looking at these cut out like little standees that come with the game and stuff like that, which is what they use now, and they're totally fine, but like, you could definitely tell this was a prototype. And man, like, we came out of there and we're like, you could probably find my Reddit post on there. It was like, man, it was like, we thought it was a good game, but it wasn't a great demo. And then sure enough, second printing comes out. This game has been number 1 on the charts for like over a year, right?
Right.
Like, just how crazy is that? So it's just fun to recollect that many, a couple of years ago, to have that experience, to now see this game essentially be the craze over the entire world, and still is today.
Right.
So Gloomhaven.
So we're just gonna add that again to the list of games I haven't played yet.
And trust me, that's totally fine. Because like I said, I've started playing this game like 2 weeks ago,
right,
or about a month ago. So that totally fine. Like, I think that's completely reasonable.
So I think the real cost of Gloomhaven, like, Gloomhaven was what, $90 plus like $9 shipping.
Yeah.
Isaac, you're ruining shipping for the rest of Kickstarter, just so you know.
I think so. Yeah. That was insane.
Everyone just cites Gloomhaven as like, oh, well, this is what it should cost to ship me if a 12-pound game. You're like, that's not really what it costs.
No.
But everyone thinks so because Gloomhaven. But yeah, so it's like $90. But the real cost is whatever table you put it on. You should probably just leave it there and never use that table for anything else.
Right.
Like I know
That's
I
right.
have like two friends that have a dedicated table that they just leave Gloomhaven set up on.
Wow.
Because like you said, the setup and teardown is insane. And it's sort of that thing like you had said before where like that's all part of the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And if you set it up and play like one mission or one part of it, I think that it's would probably be fine. Or that would probably be underwhelming than if you just like leave it set up and just keep playing. That's what I've heard. Like I haven't played it, but from everyone I've said like, yeah, just leave it set up and then it's the best game you'll ever play.
Right. Yeah, I absolutely. I've heard similar stories as well too. And like I said, it helped. That is especially the case if you don't have an organizer for it. If you don't, yeah, leave it up. Like there's no point.
Mm-hmm.
To me at least, there would be so many baggies everywhere. Like you would have to buy a value pack of baggies. I feel like if you wanted to get the organization right for it all. So Broken Token, Meeplesaurus, those guys, like you're doing, you're doing the work that like no other person wants to be able to do. Like that probably is a ton of different,
Right.
like so much organization and stuff to have it all fit, and it fits for the most part mostly flush. So you're doing the work of gods at this point, right? So anyways, yeah, there's really nothing much to really say here besides that Gloomhaven certainly earns its accolades here. I'm excited to play the rest of this stuff, and again, just have a friend play with. I mean, if you go like the game has achievements. It's like if you've completed this whole game solo, like there's just this, like there should be like a sticker that's like underneath the box, right? That you have to like get open with a knife, and like you get this like foiled sticker. It's like, oh, I've completed the game solo, and so it's like, boop, you just put that on your little sheet. Yeah,
Wear it with you everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have an open invitation. I think with like two different people who would just be like, any day you tell me what you want to play Gloomhaven, I'll have it set up when you get here. And I was like, jeez, all right. So
that's intense.
I'm gonna get into a campaign at some point. Like I know I am. It just hasn't happened yet.
You're in for like years of commitment though, unless you play like 2 or 3 times weekly, excuse me, and like you do multiple like again like 90 some odd missions, and he's got an expansion coming out, like Forgotten Circles. That is the like
for the people who've beat it already, right?
It's the game that never ends. But there's, like I said, it's a great game that never ends. Gloomhaven, Cephalofair Games. All right, this has been a lot of talk about games, but I think truly, Ian, this is about you. We met at Origins earlier this year. You were a cool guy. And I really wanted to just talk about you. Let's talk about you. Here's what I know about you from the internet. Oh. And hopefully it's not too creepy. Right? So I've been following why am I drawing a blank? Dinosaur Island, Pandasaurus.
Yep.
I saw Dinosaur Island, and I was looking at thinking about the icon for Pandasaurus, and they were like a dinosaur as well too, and I'm like, Dinosaurus Island. I'm like, no, that's not how this works. Dinosaur Island came out. Jonathan Gilmour.
Mm-hmm. And Brian Lewis.
Brian Lewis, thank you. I was like Brian Adams. I'm like,
yep, with Brian Adams.
With Brian Adams. Comes out to critical acclaim. And then work begins on an expansion. And also a solo, or not a solo, but a 2-player variant called Duelosaur Island. Insert Ian Moss, the developer of Duelosaur Island. From there, News at 11. You did some stuff with News at 11,
yep,
which was a Floodgate game.
Yep.
And now we have Wonderland's War.
Yes.
Wonderland's War, which is going to be, it's not Elf Creek, right? It's Druid City.
Druid City, yep.
Yeah, Druid City, yeah. So it's the Eisner brothers, you, and Jonathan Gilmour, which is, I think, kind of going off of the riff of the Grimm's Forest. Just saying. I think it is. A little bit. I don't know. We'll talk about it later. But, Ian, I really want to be able to talk to you about your humble beginnings, because literally Dinosaur Island being one of the hottest games I think that had came out probably last year in March or this year, I can't remember, to a sequel to this two-player variant that I remember those guys being like, as soon as it was demoed to us, it was like they immediately knew it had to be going into this Kickstarter, right? Like, tell us about that. How abouts have you come into this position?
Um, well, let's
Break it down. Start with the day, like you wake up and you're like, man,
decided
like I have a great idea. I don't know.
I
No.
decided that it would be the best day ever to sell my soul to the devil.
Nice.
And then just go for it. And instead of like, something crazy, I was just like, yeah, board game designer. Let's do that.
Right?
And the devil's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure.
That sounds good. Let's do this. Sell my soul for cardboard and plastic dye.
Right. No, it was actually I started out as a graphic designer, and I've always been like a man of 1,000 hobbies. So like I can never like stick to one thing. Like I've never been very good at like staying in my lane. I'm always
All
like,
right.
ooh, well this is interesting. Ooh, well this is interesting.
Ooh, piece of candy.
Yeah, so I learned graphic design. I learned audio editing. I know video editing. Like I can do After Effects. All of that fun stuff that is sort of related to graphic design.
Mm-hmm.
But I hadn't really done anything professionally. And then the place that I worked, which is a factory, um, one of the other people who worked there is game designer Jonathan Gilmore.
Oh,
We worked at the same
fancy that.
factory together, and I had seen him because one of my 1,000 hobbies was board games. I'd seen him at like our local shops and everything. Eventually we started talking, like, you like games, I like games, you work at this place, I work at this place, we should hang out. So he invited me because every month he has a game day at his house,
Mm-hmm.
or at a building that he has rented out or whatever. And so there's a monthly game day he invited me to. So I started going to those. And at first I was just like, oh, there's so many people here. I don't know any of these people. But eventually, I started playing games with everyone, and they all became friends. And I don't know when, but at some point, John was going to do a print and play release for this game. And like that was going to be his Christmas present to people, was just release this print and play on BGG for everyone. And it's just a fun, simple game that he made, and it was called Family Trip, because the whole the
Mm-hmm.
whole tagline was is that once you have kids, you no longer take vacations, you take trips.
Right.
So it was all about like meeting the need, like trying to have a good vacation, but also meeting the needs of your children who are just barraging you with their needs the entire time. Um, he needed someone to do graphic design. I mentioned, it's like, hey, I can do that. So I started to do graphic design on his game, and he like sent me the files, and like, this is what I need. And like I was looking over, and I was like, man, this is like there's like nothing flashy going on here. This is all just like paper and like spreadsheets and everything. And I was like, man, this seems kind of easier than I thought it would be. I had no idea what went into making games. So while I was doing that, I started having ideas for a game while I was making the
Mm-hmm.
graphic design for that. And I didn't know who else to tell that to, so I told John. I was like, hey, I have ideas for a game. So what should I do? Like, what do I do with them? He's like, write them down, just make a thing. And we meet up every 2 weeks at our local shop, and there's like a group of us, a group of designers. We meet up every 2 weeks. Just come to that. Bring your game. It doesn't have to be good. Just bring it. So I did that, and then that sort of spiraled on from there.
Right.
um,
And is that Duelosaur as we know it right now, or is that something else?
that was something else. So I've
Okay.
technically been designing games for, I want to say, 4-ish years. And the funny part is that Duelosaur was nowhere near my first game that I had worked on, or that I'd had ideas for. And actually, it was that one ended up being the first one that's going to be released, besides
Right.
News at 11, right? Like News at 11 is
Okay.
obviously, that's my first solo one that's going to be released, is Duelosaur Island.
Right.
But News at 11 was actually because there's a group of us getting around to like enter into a competition that J.R. Honeycutt and Nerd Nighters were having. They were
Mm-hmm.
going to send you this like thing from Panda Manufacturing. It was going to have some components in it. You have to make a game out of it, and then they'll pick some of those, and that person would win that contest and be able to pitch their game to whoever or whatever it was.
Right.
So we're like, oh yeah, let's do it. So the day that we were supposed to get that little kit from Panda, it didn't show up. And we were waiting on JR to release a video of what all components were actually going to come in that. And then while we were waiting for that to happen, we made news at 11.
Okay.
So it's very much like,
then.
and then the game we ended up making wasn't very good, but we got news at 11 out of it. And then a couple years down the line, after, testing it and taking it to conventions and everyone being like, man, this is like the most fun you could have with a group of people, Ben Harkins of Floodgate decided to co-publish it with Infectious Play, because John was originally going to publish it himself.
Right.
But then that didn't work out, so he wanted to co-publish it. So then Floodgate picked it up, threw it on Kickstarter, it funded, got it out to the backers, it's in stores now, and then so fast forward to Dinosaur Island, which, because I'm in John's local playtest group, him and Brian brought that and we played it, and we're like, man, this is a lot of stuff. There's a lot going on in this game. And that's when there was like 300 more components than there are in the final game. So
Really?
like, just imagine Dinosaur Island with 300 more things. I'm not going to say it was worse. It was just a lot more.
Sure.
But since I had playtested...
Fiddle-dee Island.
Yeah. Since I had playtested it a bunch, I knew the inner workings and stuff, and since it like was a smash on Kickstarter, I assumed that there was going to be like this influx of like, John's making all these dinosaur themed games now. So I was asking him after, I think like an Origins one year, like, hey, what Pandasaurus stuff are you making now? He's like, oh, well, there's going to be like this for Wasteland Express and probably this other thing that could be Wasteland Express, and there's like 3 or 4 things for Pandasaurus, and then he's like, oh yeah, and then like the Dinosaur Island expansion. But I was like, man, why isn't there more Dinosaur Island stuff? Like, that's the world I want to explore.
Right.
Like, I want more Dinosaur Island type games. I think that game is brilliant, and I think that world is just itching for more content. So I asked him, I was like, hey, do you mind if I take a crack at something like for that? And he's like, yeah, if you want to co-design it or something, we can try it. And I started having ideas and stuff, and so I was messaging him and Brian, talking to him about it, and I was like, I think I want to do like a 2-player, because there's all these 2-player implementations of these big box games. So I was like, what if there was that for Dinosaur Island? And they're like, yeah, do you want to try it yourself, or do you want us to help out? And I was like, let me take a crack at it myself, and then if it doesn't work, I would love to co-design with you guys. Like, that would be perfect. Because they were working on the expansion at the time, so I didn't want to like overload them either. But I
absolutely
made a prototype, showed it to him, and he was like, man, this is really good. This works.
Nice.
I was like, awesome. He's like, we need to get this in front of Nathan and Molly.
Right.
Of Pandasaurus. So I was like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah. So like that next Gen Con, I believe, we showed it to them, and they were very much upfront of like, yeah, we'll look at this. Like, it's fine. We will definitely look at this. They had no intention of making it, like you said. But then they played it, and they were like, they were kind of upset because they were just like, well, now we have to make this game.
Right. How exciting was that for you to be able to have someone like Jonathan Gilmour, who's done Dead of Winter, basically be like, dude, this is awesome, and brings it to Pandasaurus? Like, that to me, I think had got to have been a special moment for you, to being like, like this.
It was
fantastic.
Yeah, it was. Like, I didn't know how to take that. Like, I didn't know if he was just being nice because it was a thing that had Dinosaur Island on it and he didn't want to be mean, And I was just like, are you sure? Like, is he telling me the truth, right? Like, is this? But then too many people said that they really enjoyed it for me to be like, all right, he can't have paid all of these people to be nice. But no, yeah, it was definitely the project that was good to begin with. Like, most games get there, you have the idea that's good, but this one was actually like, this one worked from like version 2 on.
That's awesome. So Dinosaur Island second printing with Totally Liquid with Duelosaur hits over $1,000,000.
Yeah.
$1,000,000. I think I remember seeing tweets from you saying how insane it was to see this thing climb. It's like 800, 900, like $1,000,000. Like,
Yeah, I was doing a thread for every like 100K that it hit, and eventually I had to just like stop. Like I was, it was too much. Like I legitimately couldn't handle how successful that was. And
it's so nuts.
they had no idea. Like they had some idea, right? Like they knew it was going to be a
Right.
hit, but I don't think
Right.
anyone really thought that it was going to be as massive as it turned out to be.
Yeah.
But I like that is not to say that they aren't super smart at Pandasaurus. Like they are very intelligent. They made a product that was literally for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Here's this game. If you didn't get it the first time around, you really can't get it in stores right now. Back it here. If you already have the
Right.
game, here's this expansion that adds all this super cool stuff that you're going to want with this
Yep.
deluxeified version you can only get on Kickstarter. Grab that. Don't like those bigger games? How about a two-player game
Yep.
that, plays in less time, smaller setup, and then the dice, even if you have the other games, are usable in both.
Yep.
So like they made a product that worked for literally every consumer that you could think of.
That's very true. Now, I think it's within they're very close. Like it's on the boat, isn't it?
Yeah, people are starting to get their dinosaur islands, and I
Right.
believe that production is finishing or is finished by the time I say that sentence, or by the time people will hear that sentence of the other
Yeah.
two games. So it is
Okay.
definitely still on track for November.
Very good. Yeah. And that's always kind of the hardest part is like watching which I had no idea until a few months ago that there are boat trackers. So if you really really want to, and if the publishers do it, you can actually click a link and see the boat and its name and see where it is amongst the billions of other boats that are out there in the sea.
Right.
Which to me, when you look at it, it's like, holy crap! I didn't realize there's so many boats out there.
Yeah,
Right?
I had seen people talking about it in the comment section because that was like it was a roller coaster ride of a 30 days for that Kickstarter, or like
Yeah.
39 days. I think it was a longer campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that I think that was also part of the genius is that like you had time to hear about it and then get in. And so yeah, I was real active in the comments, like, oh, this is super, like this is my first Kickstarter,
Yeah.
which I guess News at 11 was my first Kickstarter, but this
Right.
was like
This
a
was like
different
the
level.
Yeah, that absolutely. Well, congratulations again to you, John, and the rest of the team. Pandasaurus, Nathan and Molly are great people. Got a new PR guy for them too, I think, for Pandasaurus, right?
Yep, Hunter
What's
Shelburne.
Yeah, I think he's gonna do. I think he's gonna do great. I think he's gonna take off. Like so both Nathan and Molly, as you know, and for the rest of the people there, they like work their butts off, and
Hmm.
I think that now they can finally get a little bit of relief because they were running all social media, doing all the publishing, like doing all that kind of stuff. So they
Yep.
definitely, I think, deserve to bring someone on board to help them out. So
Which was
again, that's
it was a lot of people didn't realize that it was just them. Like
oh yeah,
it was a
two
two-person
people.
team, and they've
Yeah.
accomplished with just two people is like it. They deserve awards that no one's giving to anyone. So
Well, that and like even going backwards,
Wasteland
Wasteland.
Express Delivery Service.
Thank you. Yeah, Weds. Um, like like the amount of game trays, the amount of punch, like the amount of effort that went into probably producing all that kind of stuff is just,
Hmm.
yeah. Again, with two people, that's
Yep.
insane. Yeah. Again, those are really cool people. So, Dinosaur Island, Totally Liquid, Duelosaur. We've talked about News at 11. Now going back a little bit too, we talked about infectious play. So recently, and I actually stopped in on a few occasions when I can at work, is that you and Jonathan actually host Facebook live streams of you drinking coffee.
Yes.
So tell us about that. Tell us about the coffee. aspect to this, because now I kind of want to try the coffee that you try, because you guys, I think, are very like, I mean, you're very professional about, I think, when you taste the coffee, I mean, you're like, you really explore, I think, the different notes of fruits,
Right.
and things you can find. But talk to us about Infectious Play and what you're doing. Are you officially with Infectious Play, or how's that all going down?
My official job title is Office Hero.
Nice.
And because John and I both do it full time, we sort of share an office. And I also sort of am helping him out with the day-to-day stuff, so he can basically focus on the game design aspects of game design and not have to worry about, making all the prototypes, dealing with all that extraneous stuff. We're gearing up for some Pandasaurus playtesting stuff again. And so I was helping him out with that. There's some things that needed made and cards and stuff, so I was doing all of that. Since we were sharing the same office, since we were working together, we're like, man, we should start doing live streams.
Yeah.
We're like, yeah, that'd be super cool. Like, we've seen all these people do live streams on Facebook. Like, Board Game Spotlight does it. Meeple Syrup has started doing theirs on Facebook.
Right.
And it seemed like I had talked to Derek Funkhauser of Board Game Spotlight, and I asked him how easy it was, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you just get this one program, get OBS, and then this and that." And
Yep.
he was telling me about all of it, and I was like, "This actually does seem pretty easy." Like, part of my skill set is within these boundaries of video editing, audio editing, image manipulations and stuff like that. So live streaming also fits into my wheelhouse of things that I know how to do. So I was like, yeah. So we started doing like a Friday live stream where we'll play like a board game or a video game. And one of the things that we said was like, I really don't want this to be work, so we should just play whatever we want to play.
Right.
Like, we're not sponsored by anybody, so if we want to take the week and play Dead Cells or, some crazy dating sim video game, we can. And the thing we haven't done yet that we keep talking about is like, we want to do a Lego stream where we just build Legos and hang out with people, because John has like 40 Lego sets that he has bought but hasn't built yet. So we want to do that eventually too. It's just whatever we want to do that week, we'll just do with very minimal like forethought.
Sure.
And so the coffee ones was, we had just gotten this like sample pack from this company called Bones Coffee Company. Not sponsored by them or anything, but if they want to.
Send a few bags their way.
Right. And it came with like these five 1 ounce bags, or probably, I don't remember, sample bags of coffee.
Okay.
So we're like, oh, we should do is like, one of us makes it and just has the other one taste it and like try and figure out which flavor it is. And we're like, yeah. And they're like, we should live stream that. And we're like, yeah, let's do it. So it just sort of spawned from there of just like, yeah, let's just make more content. Let's work, but also have fun. Like, we can call it work technically, but
sure.
But yeah, and so we started doing that, and Bones has an almost unlimited number of flavors of coffee. So we've really just been getting content from them consistently, because every time we get low, we'll just order another 5 that we haven't tried. There's probably still about 15 flavors that we haven't tried yet.
Oh, wow. Very quickly, what's been your favorite flavor?
I think our favorite was Bananas Foster. I think the next time we ordered, we just got a full bag of that one. We're just like, yep, just order that with it, because it was real good.
And that's local to you guys, right? That whole company, or are they from out of state?
I believe they're from out of state. I'm not sure exactly where. I just remembered we had seen an ad or something for it and just decided to order the coffee because we drink a lot of coffee in the office.
Let them know, man. Give them a little ad at Twitter.
Yeah.
Dude, I think they'd be down. That's exciting. I've been able to hop in. Like I said, I just like see you guys just hanging out. You have coffee mugs in your hand, just hanging out, drinking coffee, talking about like answering people's questions.
Yep.
And I think like last time you guys were at least, hitting double digits with your viewer numbers, which like those beginning parts can sometimes be really frustrating, because it's like, you're kind of talking to no one. It's like you're talking to like this void.
Right.
Eventually, like one person will come and be like, "Ooh, okay," and then this like they click off because they have to do whatever. But it seems like now you've got like those staple people coming in and hanging out with you. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Continue to do it. you recently played, so like you said, you played not only board games, but you played Dead Cells, and you played Mansions of Madness on there as well too, right?
Hmm.
Second edition. How did that go?
That went really well. That was probably my favorite game of Mansions of Madness I've ever played. I
Nice.
think
What?
like it was, I don't remember the name of the scenario, but you're going into, I believe, this manor. This officer has invited you here because all these people have gone missing, and the only
Okay.
common thread to them going missing is that they've all stayed at this manor at some point in that past month before they went missing.
Ah. Okay.
So you go in there, and obviously things are crazy. Like you're finding all these pages of this notebook that are written by the officer who's invited you there. But like then when you meet up with him, you show him the pages, and he's like, "That wasn't me. I can't be me." He's like, "Yeah, but it's your
Right.
handwriting. That's your signature." He's like, "Yeah, but I don't remember writing that." So like all this weird stuff's going on and everything. But I think the chat plus the playing the game and like reading it everything out loud and going through all of that, and it's a very thematic game that really just brings you in. I think the playing it on live stream makes it better. Like it made that
Mm-hmm.
experience more interesting. Um, because people were like, "Oh yeah, I love this scenario," or "Oh, this is so much different." And that's one of the things about Mansions of
Yeah.
Madness is, even if you've played the same scenario, you can just watch someone play it because it's not going to go the same way as the thing that yours did.
Right. What's one of my favorite games, if not my most favorite game of all time. I think second edition, the app just hits the sweet spot in terms of doing a lot of the heavy lifting that Mansions of Madness first edition made clunky. Um,
John called it his
and
favorite unplayable game.
Nah, right? I mean, I think that's a great way to describe it. And so, yeah, I'm glad he had a great time. Again, I'm actually going to Arkham Nights, speaking of which.
Oh, cool.
Arkham Nights is hosted by Fantasy Flight every October, and they basically take the back room or the back, I don't know if you've ever been to the Fantasy Flight game studio or the game center, but they have like this huge, like kind of open gameplay area, and they just fit anything Arkham themed there. You can go play with developers, play with volunteers, and they offer a lot of like unique special stuff for Arkham fans like myself. Like I'm even looking at prints of Arkham right now on my wall. Yeah, I just love it. I adore it. I've had to cull a little bit of my collection of it because it's just like collection, it turned into nothing extremely valuable to me. It just always like was looking at potential fun that I knew I was never going to play. So it's
Right.
like, all right, I can get rid of Elder Sign, I can get rid of all of these Eldritch Horrors expansions, just kind of keep the base set and enjoy it. But I still haven't been able to get rid of any of Mansions of Madness. I have everything Mansions of Madness second edition related.
Yeah.
But yeah, what a great game. I like it so much. So let's talk about, or hopefully we can talk about, Wonderland's War. So this has got to be probably, when I saw that teaser poster for it, I mean, like your last name, like P, if it's like Moss, Gilmore, Eisner brother. Like this is like straight up legit, like straight up tease, like movie poster, like straight from Disney.
Right.
It seems like all right, just give me some sort of morsel about
Well,
Wonderland's
I mean,
War.
you'll never guess what James Hudson's former job used to be if you see his marketing posts, right? Like you would never
Right.
guess that that was a thing that he used to do professionally. He's so good at it. Like, um, so what I can say about Wonderland's War? Well, he's talked about it on a couple of his live streams, just on Druid City, or
Okay.
James does live streams on Facebook also. It's
Oh,
very,
nice.
yeah.
Okay.
Um, so lately it's mostly been Title Blades, but yeah, he has done some where he's talked about Wonderland's War. So Wonderland's War is it's sort of a game of two halves
Mm-hmm.
that are connected. The first half is a worker placement game. So you're
Okay.
going around and you're sort of like gearing up for this war that is going to happen. Like this war is inevitable. Wonderland is a very different place than what you knew. Like all the same players are there, but
Sure.
alliances aren't exactly what they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there are four factions. There is Alice and her rebellion. There is the Hatter's Tea Party. There is the Jabberwock and the sort of beasts of Wonderland. And then there's the Red
Mm-hmm.
Queen and obviously her card army. Um, and they're all gearing up for this war that's going to be happening. So you're going around in the first half and you have this worker placement, and when you go to places is very relevant. It's either going to give you more or less things depending on how many other people have already sort of, ravaged it.
Okay. Oh, sure. Right. So scouring mechanism, I suppose. Sure. Potentially.
Yeah, it's sort of like a surge, and then there's a break point. Like the more, nothing basically.
Right. Okay.
It's never nothing. It's always like a minimal. You get more, less.
So you have to pick and choose like what you want to decide to scour versus getting the secondaries or tertiary things eventually before it loses its intrinsic value or
right.
its maximum value. Sure. All right.
So one of the main things, and the thing that I think I can probably talk the most about, is the Wonderlandians.
Okay.
So the denizens of Wonderland are really sort of not on anyone's side at the start of the game. And you sort of need to interact with them to sort of convince them that you are the side that they need to back during the war. So every time you go and interact with the Wonderlandian, you can either say, hey, I'm going to give you these resources and sort of gain influence with you, and also I get this ability when I do that. Or you can say, hey, I'm going to do this negative interaction with you because I don't care if you're on my side.
Right.
So whoever takes a negative interaction with the Wonderlandian will end up like they can no longer influence that Wonderlandian. They have like stolen the White Rabbit's pocket watch, or they've pushed Humpty Dumpty off of the wall, or what have you. They've done a really jerk thing to this person, gotten a very big benefit from it, a very good action.
Yep. Okay, got it.
But they can no longer interact with that Wonderlandian. And then whoever gets that Wonderlandian is the person with the most and who has influenced them the most at the end of the first half. So then they will take them and they'll actually be a character that they get to use in the second half of the game. So the second half of the game is an area control game. But the only thing is that your workers are not your soldiers.
Okay.
The people you have working for you are not the people who are going to fight your war. So what you need to do is you need to like train your soldiers and like convert your worker into soldiers. And the sooner you do this, the more soldiers that you get from it. So it's sort of like this weird looking glass thing where you get a conversion rate of like 1 worker equals like 6 soldiers.
Sure. Okay.
But then like I said, the sooner you do it, the more it's worth. So like the sooner you turn your workers into soldiers, the more you get out of it. But the less workers you have for the first half. So you're doing less things on your turn, during the first half to do more things, to have more soldiers for the second half. So the second half is the area control game. And in the area control, you are sort of taking all of the things that you've gathered in the first half and just sort of using them in the second half. So you're sort of trying to again try and get these resources that are only there on the second half and sort of take control of these different areas, which will give you points or give you the resources that you can use to sort of rally your troops and get them to be stronger or move farther or whatever it is that they need to do. And you're trying to take control of different areas, because the more you take control of the same area, the less it's worth. The more you take control of other areas, the more you spread out, the better. But the more you spread out, the more vulnerable you are.
Okay.
So I think that's about all I can say. That's a general overview.
You don't realize that that was a good long I think. I mean, I thought that was just like you're gonna be. It's like this two-faced thing. No, I think you did a really great job. I think in terms of giving me and the listeners a sense of what this is gonna be, which sounds fantastic. Each, I don't know if you can speak to this, but with each kind of faction, with Alice and the Jabberwockies, etc., how is it? Obviously, play is influenced by what you do in this first half. Do each of them kind of have like asymmetric ability in terms of like Alice can do this thing better than say the Jabberwockies, or does each kind of function the same in that you're basically kind of beginning the game deciding I'm going to play this route or that route, or is there like a uniqueness to each sort of clan or war thing that you're kind of a part of. Can you speak to that at all?
There's definitely a bit of asymmetry, and
Mm-hmm.
it functions in both halves of the game. Um, so in the worker half, your worker, like your faction, like Alice, you'll have an Alice miniature that can do things in the worker half as well as the other
Mm-hmm.
workers. And there is sort of special abilities and different resources that they will get. And then in the war half, they're your general now. Like they're leading your armies and leading your
Yeah.
soldiers, so they have definite general abilities uh, that are special and not general.
Sure. 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 Um, and I don't know if this would be. I'm definitely getting, and maybe this has gone around the office or whatever, but I definitely get senses of Root. In that Root has definitely like 4 different factions. They play differently. Like they
Mhm.
move differently. They kind of score differently. So you kind of have like these 4 little mini games going around here. Would you say that, or can it be spoken to whether or not like that's a similar concept that you have going on with Wonderland's War, or are you looking at this being a bit more like this one? This Alice figure is unique in its own way, but kind of how the rest of the whole faction plays out is going to be similar to every player on the board.
Yeah, I think it's more based on the character that you have,
Yeah.
and the rest of the play is a little bit more standardized to what everyone is doing. But the second half, like it is a bit asymmetric in the way that like you're building your army and your forces and everything in the first half. So like
Mm-hmm.
the decisions that you make in the first half of the game will sort of decide how the second half of the game is going to play out for you. Like, are you going
Right.
to try and get more soldiers? Are you going to have more tricks up your sleeve than the other
Mm-hmm.
players and just be able to be more unpredictable? Or are you going to like try and get as many Wonderlandians onto your side as possible to use them to help you win in conflicts?
Sure. Um, so obviously there's a total of 4 designers coming on board of this game. Um, what would you say brings out the like what part of the design do you hope that shines the most, that shows like this is the Ian Moss part of the game, right? um what, like, how sometimes like Bruno Fiduti has like the numbers 0 through 9, 1 through 10, and he kind of makes a game developed around that, almost like an auteur, like having like that part of his auteur,
Okay.
like that signifies who Bruno Fiduti is. Like,
Hmm.
how would you say, like, or maybe it's, I don't know if it's too early, or if you're still kind of finding that, but what makes an Ian Moss game an Ian Moss game? Or like what elements of it could we find in Wonderland's War? Kind of a loaded question, but I really want to get a sense of like when people play Wonderland's War, like what part of it is it? What part of it is Ian Moss? Or like when they play a Duelosaur game, like what part of that really makes it and punches it in home that like this unique aspect of it is this designer, if that makes sense.
Um, I think one of the things that I really like wedged into this game. I don't want to say wedged because it fit perfectly, but it was the way the Wonderlands interact and the effect that that has on the game.
Okay,
So
sure.
interacting with the Wonderlands in the second half of the game, there are events which will happen. And normally, they're just sort of things that'll just twist the game and be like, oh, well, now you can't do this, or now everyone gets this bonus. So, like, it throws a wrench into your plans. But every Wonderlandian that is in the game will add one of their event cards to that deck.
Hmm.
And if they come up, what happens is they do a positive thing. They either do a positive thing to the player who controls them, who influence them the most, or they'll do a negative thing for the person who is a jerk to them.
Got it.
So I really like that, the sort of the story of that, and I really like the narrative in games. So I feel like that is one of the major contributions that I've been able to throw in is
Sure.
that extra loaded decision of like if I'm mean to this person, there is a chance that they will come back and bite me. Like
Sure. Definitely like your Mass Effect, like, make, what is it, the trial of choices,
right.
like, what you say and do will come back, and it definitely is a gamble. um Anything else? Like, can we? I mean, as far as it is in development, are we still early on? Are we? Is there room? Is there like bubbling a time for whether this is going to be Kickstarter or retail release? Can you say anything to that at all?
All of the promo, the teaser images have said that it's coming to Kickstarter in 2019.
Okay.
As far as actual dates, I'm not sure. We are like running it through. Like we sort of we're doing this nice like hot potato thing
Mm-hmm.
where the Eisners will rock on it for a bit if we get stuck on something, and then they'll toss it over to us. We'll rock on it, and then
Yeah.
once we get it to a good spot, we both start playtesting it and then start like combining our feedback together.
Yeah.
Um, so it's really just sort of like we're passing it back and forth to solve these different problems, and it's really been like the game is 1,000 times better for the process that we've had of just be like, hey, why don't you guys try this? We've been having issues with it. And be like, hey, this didn't work for us, but this did, and so we'll try it. And so like
Mm-hmm.
the what comes from that, like the in between of like having like two teams of two designers basically working on a project has been really interesting, and it's worked in the favor of the game, and hopefully for everyone who gets to play it.
So I was actually that was going to be my last question was having four developers on a game, like how does it work in terms of like it seems like it's pretty harmonious in that yeah, Eisner Brothers go ahead, they rock on it as you said, they get stuck on something, they pass it on to you, you and John take a look at it and be like, "Oh, let's try it this way." Play, test,
Hmm.
develop. There you go, and it kind of goes back and forth. So that's awesome to hear because it seems like there's definite possibility that like there's something that you guys really like that the Eisner brothers come back and be like, well, this is not kind of how we thought this would work.
Right.
And it seems as though right now, as I said earlier, like it's seems as though all four of you are on sync. So that's
Hmm.
really great to hear.
Yeah, we have a very singular vision on what the game is going to end up being. Like
Mm-hmm.
the things that we want to see in a final. Like the John is very experienced first, so like it's not
Sure.
theme, it's not mechanics. It is what do we want the players to feel. And the four of us have like our very first video call was like going over what experience we want the players to have, and so that's kind of how we work. So as long as we know that, and we just have to make sure that all of our decisions are pointing us in that direction.
It's fantastic. Um, I think we're getting upwards to an hour and a half. I think we've had like I was like, this is only going to be an hour. Don't worry about it. We'll get you out of here. We've had a lot of great talk, so I think we should start wrapping up here.
Yeah.
So final items. Anything like you wanted to comment, say, shout outs to your peeps? I don't know. Just like any kind of final words.
Like I said, I had remembered when we first started talking about doing this, I was just like, yeah, it'd be great. We'll schedule this for later because then I might be able to talk about more things than I would if we were to talk
That's
like
right.
that
Yeah, I
same
remember
week
that. Yep.
when we first started discussing this. And it'd been a couple months since then. And so, like, since then, obviously, Wonderland's War has cropped up. So now I can talk
Yep.
about that.
Right.
Um, Marshall Britt and Marshall from Yanaguana Games, and I are
Okay.
working on this game called the HRPG, which is basically our way to gamify business cards. Um,
Okay. Oh, okay, okay.
so yeah, that's the thing that we've been working on. Marshall's been talking about a lot because he does like a Monday Mug Mentions stream, which is like half our
Mm-hmm.
inspiration for doing our coffee stream. Is that
Nice.
but his is very structured and ours is very loose. So like I feel like we're not really pushing him out of the his he gets way more viewers than we do anyway, so he's in no trouble.
Matter of time. It's only a matter of
All
time.
right. So yeah, so I've been working on that one with him, and that one it's just a lot of fun. That's like my fun project, like that I'll just throw time into when I get stuck on something else. I'll just be like, oh, time to make some weird, crazy monsters, or oh, what if this dungeon worked like this, And
Mm-hmm.
uh, so yeah, so there's like a Facebook page for that one if you want information, and they're working on it.
Sure.
And then the other one, this is very relevant to this week, and whenever this comes out, it'll probably be more relevant. um, but Title Blades. I don't know if
Yeah.
you saw the first artist diary from Tim and Ben,
Mm-hmm.
but Wonderland's War again is one of those items where it is not the first project with the Eisners that we are doing. It's just the first that got
Oh.
announced.
Okay.
Um, But Mr. Cuddington, who's doing the art and obviously the world building for Title Blades, has
Yep.
mentioned in their artist diary on BGG that this is part one. of a series of games.
Nice.
Now, half of the reason that the Wonderland's War thing happened is because part 1, the Eisners are doing.
Yep.
Part 2, John and I are doing.
Oh, okay.
And it's going to be a sort of story-driven dungeon crawler.
You got... oh, we just talked about Manchester Madness, now you're dropping this on me, dude? Seriously, I'm interested. Not to fanboy or anything on it, but color me interested, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I'm sure they're going to be dropping more and more tidbits of information as it goes on, but that was one of the things that we had already been in talks with the Eisners for various reasons, so the Wonderland's War project was just sort of like an inevitable meeting of the minds.
Right. Dude, that's fantastic. Congratulations again on all the different projects that have now opened up for you, again with Dinosaur Island and all that kind of stuff. That's been awesome. In homage to my co-host, who again is not able to make it, to kind of sign off the stream, he always does a quick lightning round of questions. So first thing that comes to your mind with these questions, they aren't going to be like, well, I don't know. He's a weirdo. Not going to lie. Some of you, I'm going to try to recall the questions he does state, but I think to do a lightning round of quick questions is going to be my offering of him being present with us today. So let's get started. Okay, you ready?
Yes.
You ready? Ready? Let's go. I forgot it already. NSYNC. No. NSYNC or Backstreet Boys?
Backstreet Boys, unfortunately.
Oh, gosh. Okay, fine. Moving on. Britney Spears or the other one?
Christina Aguilera?
Yep.
Christina Aguilera?
Okay, that's fine. No, you're good. Best favorite board game of all time?
Roll for the Galaxy.
Ooh, that's a good one. What else? Favorite sport?
Hockey.
Favorite hockey team?
Detroit Red Wings.
Nice. There's like one more. He like asks what your age is, and I'm like, that doesn't matter. That's totally okay. I have to think of one more. Favorite band?
Coheed and Cambria.
Nice. All right, that does it. That's the lightning round. Ian, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was great.
This has been an hour and 35 minutes that flew by.
Yeah.
You're welcome back anytime.
Of course.
You and John will maybe make it a quad podcast.
If you just want a bunch of people talking at once, just get all 4 of us, the Eisners just blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, so that Eisners, you, John, myself, Jacob. Yeah, that would be just that would be a mansion of madness, literally. All right, we're signing off. Thanks everybody for listening. Ian, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening. Music intro is S'il vous plaît by Fantastic Plastic Machine, and music bumpers were created by myself using Apple Loops and GarageBand for iOS. Join us next week as I try to not talk about my baby too much on another exciting episode of Rolling Doubles Podcast.